Philip. Can you hear us, Philip?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. Great. It's always it's always fun with technology trying to get folks to Skype into the studio. So I appreciate you taking a few minutes to be able to Skype into us today here in Providence, Rhode Island. Welcome.
It's nice to be in Rhode Island. I'm sure the weather's there better than it is here.
The weather is absolutely beautiful. I'm here in downtown Providence. Lots going on in the city. Would probably rather be at the beach, but as I look around, I wish I could turn our little Mevo camera around here. There's so much going on roadwork-wise here on the street, and one of the reasons why I wanted to reach out to you, Philip, was all of the work that you've done looking at infrastructure in the country. And again, it was that national review piece about how we can fix this infrastructure mess. You might know Rhode Island has some of the worst roads and bridges in the country, and you've clearly taken a look at the issue on a national level. So talk to us a little bit about what you found. How do we move this forward quicker?
Well, America's living on the infrastructure that was built between 50 and 100 years ago. Not only roads, but decrepit power lines, water mains, waste treatment facilities, that sort of thing. And it's a very good investment to fix it. So, for example, a recent study said that upgrading America's roads would return $5 on each dollar invested. So you'd think it's sort of an obvious thing to do. So what's standing in the way? Well, there are two things standing in the way. The thing that most people talk about is the lack of investment. And for most infrastructure, let's say 60% of it, the government really needs to fund it because it doesn't have a regular revenue stream and such. Most roads don't have tolls on them, etc. And there's a kind of an ideology today on the Republican side that because government wastes so much money, which by the way is true, that therefore you should never raise taxes. You should starve the beast. The problem with that is that meanwhile we can't get around. We're starting traffic jams, and we're wasting electricity on inefficient power lines. So there's a political problem in raising the money. It actually wouldn't be that hard. If we raised the gas tax by 25 cents a gallon, that would raise over $40 billion a year, which would be enough to upgrade all of the arterial, certainly the interstate roads that go through Rhode Island and others. And I believe most Americans would support that. We've polled it, and most Americans do support that. But there's another problem, which I've written about, which is the red tape problem. And what's happened over the last few decades is the red tape has kind of piled up so that even the simplest permit requires years of review and analysis. And I did a study of raising the roadway of a bridge that used the same foundations and right-of-way. They had to get 47 permits from 19 different agencies for a project with no environmental impact. It took 5 years that included a 20,000-page environmental assessment.
That's a lot of red tape.
Yeah. So in any event, I've given a presentation to President Trump about this and written a lot about it. And the group I chair, Common Good, commongood.org, has a 3-page legislative proposal that would solve the problem. It would create clear lines of authority to decide how much environmental review is needed here or there, and it would give someone in the White House the authority to resolve issues of permitting.
So tell us,
you got to pass the law.
What was the presentation? What was the reception of the presentation with the president?
The president has been receptive, and he gave a speech a couple of weeks ago in which my report that I wrote a year ago was called 2 Years, Not 10 Years. And he gave a speech saying we should make infrastructure approvals for major projects taking no more than 2 years, not 10 years. And our report called for creating clear lines of authority to make decisions, and he said in his speech we needed to create clear lines of authority to make decisions. Now, so that's so far so good. I haven't seen his actual legislative proposal, so I don't know if the beef goes with the words.
So talk to us a little bit, as you said, the word sounded to echo the report that you had put forth out there about this. With what's going on in Washington right now, obviously, between Russian investigations, between what's going on with healthcare, how soon do you think that we'll see anything legislatively move forward on the infrastructure side?
Well, certainly the White House would like to push infrastructure because they'd like to have a win. And so far, most of the other initiatives have not been wins. So, I think there's an appetite for moving infrastructure forward this year. It remains to be seen. In general, I would say Washington is out of control. Congress is dysfunctional, and the White House doesn't really have a clear view yet of how to achieve needed public change. I guess that's the nicest way I could put it.
Do we have a sense, as you said, the aging infrastructure and how many years ago so much of the roads and bridges were built and maintained? Are we at sort of a point in time in which, are we at a dire point in time? We've talked about bridges here in the state. If you follow Rhode Island, the legislature pushed forth truck tolls to be able to provide what they say is a revenue source to fix the most needed bridges here in the state. But are we going to see literally crumbling infrastructure if something's not done?
I think Americans generally respond to crisis. So I think before the bridges fall down, someone will fix them. But it's not the way you should take care of the physical structure of the society. We need to have a coherent infrastructure policy and program that not only fixes what's broken, but also upgrades what's needed to be fixed, whether it's or wastewater treatment. The American Society of Civil Engineers has done a report grading each category of infrastructure in America. And overall, we have a D+ rating. So it's not an F rating, but it's a bad rating.
Not the report card you want to bring home to your parents. Let's talk a little bit about the potential for increasing the gas tax. We've heard this from the president. It's been a while. It's been since the 70s. But do you think politically this is feasible? Do you think there'll be any major opposition if this is something that ends up being pushed forward?
My view of Congress is that it is structurally paralyzed. The framers actually made a mistake. They made it hard to pass new laws without thinking about how you would get rid of old laws. So you have all these old laws that piled up, and each of them is now surrounded by an interest group, so you can't get rid of obsolete subsidies from the 1930s and such. In general, I would say Congress responds to a 2x4. So if you don't get front page pressure, for example, Congress recently changed the personnel rules for the Veterans Administration. Well, that followed several years of scandals of mistreatment of veterans in the Veterans Administration. Yes. And that's what it took to get the change. So it seems to me this country needs a new movement that's a popular movement that people sign on to. It's not a new party, but it's a new approach to government where you demand that it clean out the old stuff so we don't have as much waste in government, but also that it actively invest and do things like raise the gas tax so that we're not stuck in traffic jams. I'll pay 25 cents extra a gallon without any problem in order to save an hour in a traffic jam. I think most Americans would take that deal.
It is the opportunity costs, absolutely. And as you mentioned, the 2x4 trying to hit Congress over the head with it. Do you think they'll get hit with a 2x4 on this? Do you think they'll get the message of the need for this at this juncture in time, Philip?
Well, America's a very interesting point. Is at a kind of inflection point. 47% of Americans voted for Donald Trump, who might otherwise have been disqualified by many people for many reasons because they're angry at Washington. The Common Good, the group I chair, did a poll that was released this week in which not only do most Americans think Washington is broken, which is not a surprise, but a majority of Americans, both Republicans and Democrats, think that the problem is not just a problem of leadership, but a problem of approach to governing, that the structures are paralyzed, that they don't allow people to use their common sense. They don't allow any flexibility by officials or citizens. You have Big Brother breathing down the neck of teachers and doctors all day long. So I think we're at a point where sometime in the next few years, there will be growing anger and demand for a historic overhaul of Washington, not unlike what happened in the 1960s or the 1930s or the Progressive era, where we really changed the way we govern.
So talk with us, I know you've got a limited time, Philip, you're a busy man, but talk with us about the role of Common Good, its formation, its sort of role in the dialogue and discourse for viewers who might be interested in learning more.
Yeah, so Common Good is a non-for-profit that I started about 15 years ago, and its advisory board includes a lot of prominent people like former Senators Bill Bradley and Alan Simpson, both parties, a number of university presidents and the like. And Common Good has one idea only, it's just one idea. And our idea is to restore human responsibility as the main mechanism for making public choices. So we're calling for radical simplification of most bureaucratic structures, not to, quote, deregulate, but to make regulation more goals-oriented and give people the flexibility to actually achieve goals and to get forms out of the classroom and out of doctors' offices to the greatest extent possible. I'll give you one fact. 30% of the American healthcare dollar goes to administration.
Ooh, that's a big number.
That's over $1 million per physician. That's a form of mental illness. It's not a coherent system of organizing healthcare. Over 25% of the K-12 budget goes to special education, not because all that money is needed for special education, but because it's an incredibly bureaucratic, legalistic process that drowns everyone, including the parents, in paperwork.
Those are some staggering numbers, Philip, and as I said, was so glad to be able to get you to Skype in and talk about where things are with infrastructure, what to look for. But here we are, it's June 2017. Before we let you go, what's on your plate for the second half of the year and with Common Good?
We're working with some of the leading experts in the country to prepare model codes area by area. So we want to create a model education code for K-12 schools that would take tens of thousands of pages of rules and regulations and turn it into 100 pages, and give schools and local communities much more freedom to run their schools, sort of run public schools the way charter schools are run.
Okay.
It doesn't mean people can do whatever they want. They couldn't teach creationism or beat the children. But the legal framework would be outer boundaries rather than dictating how people teach it. Deal with their children hour to hour. We also want to create a new model civil service code so that government officials can get more responsibility and be accountable if they don't do a good job. And simplify that as well.
I look forward to seeing what comes out of Common Good with this. A lot of folks were very political state here, as you might know, Philip, and I think folks would be very interested to see what comes out of that, especially streamlining, as you said, bureaucratic regulation. So again, I wanted to get you on the last national review piece that you had was, again, how to fix the infrastructure mess. And as we know here in Rhode Island, we certainly are up to our eyeballs. So I appreciate getting a national expert such as yourself to come on and talk with us a little bit about it. So we'll let you go back to the task at hand, and hopefully we'll end up talking with you soon.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.